Hello everybody. Today I'm going to show you how you can configure firewall settings and the networking of an FTP server that's running on a Windows machine hosted on Azure. For this tutorial, I'm going to assume that you already have a virtual machine ready and that you've also configured the web role and you've configured your FTP server. So this is this is the virtual machine that I'm going to use today. It's called my FTP. So let's jump in the virtual machine and see what configuration we need to do. So this is my virtual machine, and this is the Internet Information Services Manager, where you can see that I've got an FTP site defined. It's called FTP. The most important configuration that we're going to take a look today is the FTP firewall support. This is very important to configure in order to ensure that connections to your FTP server will be successful. So here is the configuration option. What we see here at the top is the data channel port range configuration and the external IP address configuration. Now I think the external IP address is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, here we need to type in the public address of our virtual machine, and we can get the IP address from the portal, or since we are now using a remote desktop connection, the IP address is actually displayed on the top. So just fill the IP address in, and then we need to take care of the other options, which specifies the range of ports that will be used for data communication. And usually you would like to restrict those. Here I'm just going to use a 9000 to 9999 port range. And since this is actually a global setting, we configure this setting from the global server node, not from our FTP node. And the last thing that we actually need to do is to restore the FTP service itself. If we do not do this, our latest settings will not be applied, which will be a problem. So just find Microsoft FTP service and restart it. Now we are pretty much ready with the configuration on the server side of things. And what we should do now is actually configure our network security group. You can view this as our Azure firewall. And let's just navigate to the security group. And as you can see here on the right, there's just one inbound security rule that allows remote desktop connections. We have to add 2 additional rules for our FTP. I'm just going to click add and choose a name. For my rule, we choose TCP and we choose port 21, this is the default FTP port, the control port of the FTP. And now once this rule has been applied, we'll add our second rule, which will be about the data ports that we've just configured on our server. So we choose FTP data as name, again choose the TCP, and here choose the port range that we've already defined on our server side. Now, once this rule is applied, we should be ready to go. And I'm going to test our FTP using a program called FileZilla. Many of you probably know it. But first, I would like to show you where you can find the IP address of your virtual machine. So just go to your virtual machine, and here on the right, you'll be able to get your IP address. So let's now connect to our FTP. I've pre-configured my connection. So here's the IP address. We're using passive mode. We're also using encryption. That's FTP over SSL, and I've also entered the username and the password that I'm using to connect to the FTP. As you can see, the connection is successful, and we can create directories, upload files, and everything else. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.